I like fun facts, but I prefer unfun facts. They're the brain equivalent of getting a little piece of popcorn stuck in your teeth. I'm not going to ruin your day, but hopefully several hours later, you're going to be like, huh, that's still in there. Number one, your organs are just kind of in a pile. The diagrams make them look all nice and pretty and differentiated, but they're really mostly the same color, and they're just shoved in there sloshing around. There are little wispy bits of tissue keeping everything in generally the same order, but there's lots of situations where they move. Like there's a rare condition called wandering spleen. For some reason they gave it the cutest name, like, oh, my spleen's going for a little wander. How adorable and upsetting. Number two, lots of the houses on Cribs were totally fake. Cribs was a show on music television where they would go look at the crazy houses of celebrities, except they didn't. They frequently went to crazy houses that the celebrities wanted you to think were theirs. They would borrow them, they would rent them, they would show you their rich uncle's crazy house. Basically, the whole thing was an improv show where a celebrity had to walk around a house that wasn't theirs and make up reasons why they chose to decorate it that way. Number three, a lot of books weren't written by their writers. James Patterson famously wrote the outlines and then paid someone else to write the actual words. Tom Clancy's process was so messy it spawned this incredible book cover, but I was pretty hurt when I found out that Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew were basically just cranked out by a kid's mystery factory. A lot of the books were plotted out by the creator, Edward Stratemeyer, and then handed off to a team of freelancers. Using this method, Stratemeyer wrote over 1,300 books as long as you're super chill about what the word wrote means. Does this matter to your life? Probably not. I just think it's fascinating that authors, Cribs, and the location of your spleen are all just kinda made up. I like fun facts, but I love unfun facts. They're like intellectual blue cheese. If you ingest too much of it, no one will want to stand close to you. Number one, killer bees were bred on purpose to be chill bees. A geneticist in the 1950s wanted to produce honeybees that were as fast at making honey as the African honeybee, but were as docile and friendly as the European honeybee. So he crossbred them, and the result was oopsie doodle. It happens, you know, sometimes you put in Rita Wilson and Thomas the Hank Engine, and out comes Chet Hanks. Unfortunately, the Africanized killer bee breached containment and went around the world terrorizing people anywhere they went, just like Chet. Number two, in honor of Warner Brothers deciding not to throw away a fully finished movie, coyotes are way faster than roadrunners. But on the flip side, roadrunners can fly, which means that in the cartoon, Roadrunner is choosing to stay in danger because it's more fun to torture Coyote. And that totally tracks because real roadrunners are vicious. They hunt poisonous snakes in packs. They'll catch a rattlesnake. One of them will pin it down with its claws, and the other one will peck its head to death. Honestly, they're so brutal, I kinda root for Coyote now. And number three, in the Berenstain Bears, Mama Bear is 27 years old. Hat tip to Rob Anderson, who is all over the Bears beat. This bear, this dress, this attitude, 27 human years old. Part of the problem is that she had her first bear child when she was only 16, and also her husband sucks. Papa Bear doesn't want her to work outside the home, is constantly undermining her, and oh yeah, he's racist. All of that is why she's aging like potato salad. But the kids turned out great despite having a terrible dad, or as we call it in the business, the reverse Chet Hanks. I like fun facts, but I love unfun facts, the kind of stuff that feels bad but is also intriguing, like the propeller guy in Titanic. Number one, two of the worst substances in Earth history, leaded gasoline and CFCs, were both invented by the same guy. There are a lot of people who could have improved the Earth tremendously by just staying home and doing nothing, and one of the top candidates for that position is Thomas Midgley. T-Midge came up with the idea of putting lead, the insanely dangerous substance that never leaves your body once a little bit gets in, into gasoline for cars, the thing that almost everybody is near every day. And when he, get this, got lead poisoning, he left the company and went on to invent chlorofluorocarbons, the thing that punched a hole in the ozone layer in the 70s and 80s and would have ended the Earth if we hadn't stopped using them when we did. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Tom also invented E. coli and biting the inside of your cheek. If you had a time machine and wanted to have the biggest possible impact on the Earth and you had already done the other thing, you could go back to when Tom was a teenager and just teach him to play like guitar or Warhammer or something. And number two, the entirety of Yellowstone National Park sits on top of a giant supervolcano that erupts about every 600,000 years, and the most recent eruption was 630,000 years ago. And it's easy to say right now that a supervolcano taking all of America would feel fair, but apparently it was a real bummer the last time it happened. NASA even came up with a plan to try to prevent it from erupting, but one of the risks, they said, was that it might cause it to erupt, which is a heck of a roll of the dice. So if you do have a time machine and you've already finished those other two jobs, why don't you go back to right before the volcano erupted the last time, test out NASA's plan, and then if that isn't going to work, teach the volcano how to play guitar or Warhammer or something. I like fun facts, but I love unfun facts. They're like pieces of licorice. They're not for everybody, but if your taste buds and your soul are just dead enough, they're perfect. Number one, YouTube just celebrated its 20th anniversary, so I think it's a great time to remember that it only exists because one guy was mad he couldn't see a nip. Obviously, this is right after the famous Super Bowl incident where Justin Timberlake ruined Janet Jackson's shirt and career literally single-handedly and suffered no consequences whatsoever. The next day, a gross dude who worked at PayPal was mad that he couldn't watch that video over and over and over again, so he created a site specifically for uploading stolen broadcast content. He made $1 bajillion, and people keep uploading that video, including a recent pirated copy that has received over 4.4 million views, presumably from people who want justice for Janet. Number 2, penguin mouths are full of fingernails. To help them swallow fish, they have rows and rows of nightmares made out of keratin, the same material as in fingernails. So when people say it's what's inside that counts, they don't mean penguins. And number 3, in addition to the stuff he got famous for, Charles Darwin studied bird poop, how music affects worms, and the effects of inbreeding. And that last one he studied because it included his 2 loves, inherited traits and his cousin who he married. It was an issue near and dear to his loins. He played piano for earthworms as part of a book about worms that at the time was much more successful than Origin of Species. But I think in the long run, just like Janet and Justin, history remembers good art better than weird worms. I like fun facts, but I love unfun facts. They're like 90% dark chocolate. No matter how hard you try, you can't tell if they're delicious or gross. Number 1, a portion of mermaid sightings were actually manatees. Can you see it? Okay, now pretend that you're addled with scurvy and haven't seen a woman in 18 months. One sighting that was almost certainly a manatee was Christopher Columbus, who wrote in his diary, "Quite distinctly saw 3 mermaids. They are not so beautiful as they are said to be." Chris is pretty famous for misidentifying stuff he sees from boats, but this one is so funny. I love to picture him waving his first mate over and going, "Check out that mermaid," and the guy's like, "That sea cow? That's not a mermaid." And CC can never admit when he's wrong, so he's just like, "Yeah, shut up. I'd still hit that." Number 2, red delicious apples were actually tasty at one point, and they were selectively bred into the mealy, disgusting thing that they are now. In the 1800s, they were just a naturally occurring variant that popped up in an Iowa orchard, and people freaked out about how delicious they were. But as they became more popular, farmers selectively bred them for brighter and more consistent colors, even though they tasted crappier. We chose red over delicious until it was ruined forever, and that's why we can't have nice things. Number 3, Humpty Dumpty didn't used to be an egg. The rhyme has been around forever, and nowhere does it mention egginess. It was originally assumed to be a human man, and then Lewis Carroll designed him as an egg for part of Through the Looking Glass, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's an egg name for sure." But I like to think the real origin is that it was a true story about a guy who fell off a wall and a bunch of horses tried to play doctor for some reason, and then Christopher Columbus saw that from his boat and was like, "Check out the egg that fell over," and his friend was like, "That's not an egg," and he was like, "Shut up, I'd still hit that."